The story starts in Alaska, which is known for its freezing cold climate. Because global temperatures were rising quickly, even Alaska's ice started to melt slowly. As the thick layer of ice got thinner, one day a very ancient and dangerous creature came out from under the melting ice. This creature was Wyvern, a fearsome ice dragon. Nearby, at a pond created by the melting ice, a fisherman was cleaning the fish he had caught. Suddenly, his knife slipped and he accidentally cut his finger. He dipped his hand in the cold water to clean the wound. But as soon as a drop of his blood mixed with the water, the dragon woke up. This beast had been trapped there for 10,000 years and was extremely hungry. It immediately attacked the fisherman. The poor fisherman tried to escape, but the dragon caught him and swallowed him whole. Not far from this terrible event was a small town called Beaver Mills. Life in Beaver Mills was going on just as usual. In Alaska, days and nights are much longer than in other places, which can make things difficult for newcomers. One of these newcomers was Jake. Jake used to work as a truck driver, but after losing his brother in a tragic accident, he quit that job and now works as a carpenter. At that moment, Jake was repairing something at a small restaurant in the town. As Jake worked, a young woman named Claire, who also worked there, watched him closely. Jake had been working for a long time, so Claire thought it would be nice to offer him some coffee. She was about to give Jake the coffee when suddenly David, a well-known doctor in town, stepped in. David took the coffee from Claire, assuming it was for him, and then asked Claire if she'd like to go on a date. Claire said no, just as she had many times before. David felt embarrassed and angry and walked away. Later, Claire apologized to Jake, explaining that the coffee was meant for him, but now it was gone. She offered Jake something to eat if he was hungry. Jake was actually hungry, so he accepted. Inside the diner, Jake met an older woman named Edina. Edina was a regular customer and always ordered breakfast for two, one for herself and one for her husband. Sadly, she was the wife of the fisherman who had just been eaten by the dragon. Edina was still grieving the loss of her husband. Claire noticed that Jake seemed to be dealing with a similar kind of sadness. She comforted Jake, telling him that wherever his brother was, he would be happy. But Jake wasn't ready to talk about his brother yet. He finished his coffee and went back home. Elsewhere in town, a retired colonel was feeding his dog in the garden when suddenly the severed head of a large deer dropped from the sky right in front of him. This bizarre incident quickly made the local news. There was only one radio station in the area, so the reporter shared the news with everyone. Most people thought it was just a prank by some kids, but in reality, it was a warning of a much bigger threat. Jake heard the news, but didn't take it seriously and returned to his van, which was his home. A little later, Dr. David visited Jake at his van. He noticed Jake's injured hand and said he wanted to treat it, but the treatment was just an excuse. David really just wanted to know if there was something going on between Jake and Claire. Jake turned him down and told the doctor he wasn't planning to stay in town for long. He explained that as soon as he got his brother's insurance money from the accident, he would move away. This news made the doctor very happy. He told Jake he didn't have to pay for the treatment and to let him know if he ever needed help. On his way back, David stopped his car near the forest to use the bathroom. While he was outside, he heard a loud noise coming from above. When he looked up, he saw the huge ice dragon. The dragon came up to the car and suddenly attacked David. David somehow managed to run into the forest and hide for a while. When he thought the dragon had left, he went back to his car. But as soon as he tried to start the car, the dragon came back and attacked him again. It seemed like David had been killed. The next day, a man named Hayes went hunting in the forest. He noticed strange marks on the ground and found droppings from a huge animal. He knew there was no animal in the forest big enough to leave marks like these. Suddenly, the wyvern appeared right in front of him. Hayes fired his gun at the dragon, but it dodged the shot. Sheriff Dawson, who was talking with Jake outside the diner, heard the gunshot. Both of them followed the sound into the forest and found Hayes, who looked terrified. Hayes told them he'd seen a giant monster in the sky and barely managed to escape. The sheriff didn't believe his story. He thought Hayes might be drunk or imagining things and told him to come to the station and make a statement. But then Jake spotted a severed hand lying in the forest. He instantly recognized the shirt and the watch. It was Dr. David's hand. Jake had just seen him yesterday. The sheriff was confused and couldn't figure out what was happening. Hayes kept insisting the monster was extremely dangerous and would kill everyone. Even though they didn't have clear proof of the dragon, David's severed hand couldn't be ignored. The sheriff called an emergency meeting at the restaurant. He informed everyone that some unknown creature was attacking people in the town. He wasn't sure if Hayes' monster story was true, But he still warned everyone to be careful and stay indoors. At that moment, Deputy Susie arrived holding the doctor's severed hand. When people saw this, everyone became scared. The sheriff firmly announced that no one should go into the forest alone and everyone should look after their pets. There was an important annual festival coming up in town, and people asked the sheriff what should be done about it. Jake spoke up and asked, "Are you all out of your minds? We just found a man's severed hand and you're worried about the festival." But the sheriff replied that outsiders wouldn't understand how things are done here, and the festival would go ahead so people wouldn't get too frightened. After the meeting, the sheriff got a call from Thomas, who said his farm had been attacked. The sheriff quickly left for the farm. On the other side, retired Colonel Travis was still trying to find out what was happening. He said that aliens had invaded our world. Susie thought the old man was crazy and told him to go home, but she still decided to tell the sheriff about it. But by then, the sheriff had already reached Thomas's farm and wasn't answering his phone. The sheriff entered the horse stable and called out for Thomas. Suddenly, he slipped and fell into a pool of blood. Lying there, he saw Thomas's lifeless body. The sheriff wasn't used to seeing such gruesome scenes. He was so shocked that he fainted. Then Colonel Travis rushed to Hampton, who worked at the radio station. Hampton suggested they quickly make an emergency announcement about the monster. But Hampton refused, explaining she couldn't make any announcement without government approval. Colonel Travis was furious, but there was nothing he could do. So, he went to his friend Farley, who was busy cooking for the festival. But Farley didn't believe his story either. But soon, everyone had to believe it, because Wyvern arrived in town himself. It landed directly in front of the radio station. When Hampton saw the dragon, she tried to send out a message for help, but the dragon broke the power pole, knocking out electricity and shutting down the radio. Back at the farm, the sheriff woke up and told Susie over the radio to send everyone home. Susie used a megaphone to announce that everyone should return to their homes. But unfortunately, things didn't go her way. Suddenly, the huge dragon appeared and attacked Susie instantly. It killed her with its sharp, powerful claws. Now, seeing the dragon, everyone began to run. Chaos broke out in the town. Claire and Jake rushed inside the restaurant. They heard screams and saw the dragon heading their way. Using its huge, dangerous teeth, the dragon smashed through the diner's door and tried to force its way inside. People quickly hid behind tables. After a while, the dragon stopped attacking and flew up into the sky so it could find more people in the town to catch and eat. Soon, Hampton and Farley came into the diner and explained that the monster was attacking and eating people one by one. Everyone thought it was strange, really strange. Then Claire suggested maybe it was a dragon, like in old legends. Hampton called her crazy, but Hess pointed out that every country has stories about mysterious dragons. He explained that old legends tell of a dragon named Wyvern, born in hell, and always extremely hungry. In those stories, the dragon first ate only bad people, but eventually, it got so hungry it started eating everyone. The king of the gods, Odin, trapped it inside a mountain of ice. Now, since ice is melting around the world, maybe Wyvern has been set free. Hess knew all about this because his family came from Norway, where these stories began. Jake asked if there was any way to kill it. Hess replied that in ancient times, people used to sacrifice humans, but that's impossible now. Jake decided he would go find the sheriff and call for help. Claire said she would come along too. The two of them went out onto the road and looked up to see that the dragon had landed in a part of the forest. Even though it was dangerous, Jake said he'd get closer to see where the dragon was hiding. At the same time, Colonel Travis was also looking for the dragon on a different road. He noticed a trailer parked by the roadside. The vehicle was empty, but there were bloodstains inside and outside, as if there had been a struggle. He saw other vehicles too, all broken, and the people were gone. He realized the dragon wanted to trap everyone there so it wouldn't run out of food. Inside the diner, Hampton tried to get the radio working, but the system was completely down. A little while later, the sheriff came back to town, but everything was destroyed. He tried to call for help, but just then, the dragon was flying right at him. Farley shouted for everyone to quickly hide inside the diner. But as the sheriff tried to go inside, the dragon attacked him and carried him off. Meanwhile, Jake reached the forest and found the dragon's nest, which was built from broken pieces of things scattered around. He handed Claire a pistol and told her to stay inside the car. When Jake went ahead, the dragon attacked the car. Claire tried to hide, but the dragon smashed the door open. Claire showed courage and fired several shots. Jake ran back, but the car was empty. Luckily, he found Claire in the forest nearby. She had barely escaped. Just a few seconds later, the colonel arrived there. He came because he heard the sound of gunfire. They realized that the only way to stop the dragon now was to destroy it. All three of them returned to town. Jake contacted Hampton on the communicator and learned that the sheriff was dead. Now they had to come up with a new plan. They didn't have many weapons, and their phones weren't working either. Hampton remembered there was a radio in her studio, but they would need a stronger antenna for it to work. They figured out that a nearby store probably had an antenna. Jake and Hampton went there. On their way, they grabbed weapons and bullets from the sheriff's car and handed them to the colonel, so he could keep everyone safe. At the store, Jake climbed up to the roof and began unscrewing the antenna. Just as he was loosening the last screw, the dragon showed up again. Hampton quickly pulled out his pistol and fired at the dragon to distract it, giving Jake enough time to get the antenna free. They rushed back to the diner and barely made it out safely. Back at the diner, Hampton set up the antenna and hooked it up to the radio. Jake tuned in the right frequency and tried contacting the security agency, but the signal was weak and the agent wasn't convinced. Jake thought people wouldn't believe him about the dragon, so he lied and said there was a gas explosion and they urgently needed help. But the signal dropped and he couldn't finish the conversation. With no outside help, Jake decided they had to fight the dragon themselves. Everyone got their weapons ready. Farley and Hayes went out to fight the dragon. Right then, the dragon appeared over a house. Farley panicked and the dragon hit him with its tail, badly injuring him. Jake rushed forward to help him, while the others kept attacking the dragon. Meanwhile, we see Dr. David in the dragon's nest. It turned out he was actually alive. David took off his tie and wrapped it around his arm to stop the bleeding. When he stood up, he saw 3 huge dragon eggs. But before he could do anything, the dragon came back and carried him to the city. Meanwhile, in the city, Jake and Claire were resting when Hayes came in and told them the Wyvern had returned. Everyone looked outside and saw the dragon drop David on the ground. It was a trap. It wanted everyone to come outside to get him. Jake knew it was a trap, but he couldn't just let David die. He went out to save him. When the dragon attacked, Jake fired his pistol. Hayes and the colonel also started shooting. Even though he was hurt, Farley ran to distract the dragon, and the plan worked. Jake managed to save David, but the dragon caught Farley and took him back to its nest. A little later, a rescue helicopter arrived, but as it got close to the city, the dragon attacked it, wrecked the helicopter, and killed the pilot. Once again, the people in town were on their own. David, who was in really bad shape, used his last breaths to tell everyone there were 3 eggs in the nest. If those eggs hatched, more dragons would be born, and they wouldn't be able to stop them. Jake said, "We need to go to the forest and destroy those eggs." They left Edna behind, and everyone else headed into the forest. In the forest, they found a power generator. There, they found a power generator that could create a dangerous electric current. They planned to use the electricity to kill the dragon. Hampton set up the generator. Everyone got into position, but just as Jake was about to flip the switch, the dragon attacked. The plan failed and Hayes was killed. Seeing his friend die, the colonel lost control and started shooting at the eggs. Jake stopped him and explained that the eggs could still be used to lure the dragon. As they moved on, they found a big cargo truck. Jake decided he could use the truck to trap the dragon. He said he would handle it alone.
क्लियर सेफ रहे क्योंकि अब वो उसे पसंद करने लगा था। जेक ने अंडे ट्रक में लोड किए और फुल स्पीड से ट्रक भगाया, हॉर्न बजाते हुए ताकि ड्रैगन पीछे आए। ड्रैगन जाल में फंस गया और ट्रक का पीछा करने लगा। उसने ट्रक को टक्कर मारी और फिर विंड स्क्रीन के सामने आ गया, जिससे जेक को कुछ दिख नहीं रहा था। रास्ते में एक बड़ा पहाड़ और गहरी खाई आई। जेक ने ट्रक को फुल स्पीड में खाई की तरफ दौड़ा दिया और आखिरी मौके पर ट्रक से कूद गया। ट्रक ड्रैगन और अंडों के साथ पहाड़ से नीचे गिरा और एक जबरदस्त धमाका हुआ। उस धमाके में ड्रैगन और उसके सारे अंडे खत्म हो गए। इस तरह वाइवर्न नाम का वो खतरनाक आइस ड्रैगन खत्म हो गया। शहर के बचे हुए लोग और क्लेयर जेक का इंतजार कर रहे थे। थोड़ी देर बाद जेक वापस आया और बताया कि खतरा टल चुका है। अंत में जेक ने फैसला किया कि वो अब कहीं नहीं जाएगा और क्लेयर के साथ इसी शहर में रुकेगा। यहीं पे मूवी की कहानी खत्म हो जाती है।